Hey guys, Mitch Brisker here. Welcome back to Scientology the Big Lie. If you're new here, welcome. So we've come to the end, the final chapter of Scientology the Big Lie, how I made an evil cult look good. And stick around. It's short but sweet, and I think you're really going to dig it.
If you fail to understand, then the same incredible terror that's menacing me will strike at you!
Hey guys, let me know if you can have any difficulty seeing me or hearing me. I appreciate that. I don't have a production crew, so I don't have mods, so it's just nice to know you got my back. So let me see, who do we got here? Hey, Miss Amber Sunshine. Hi, thanks for stopping by. Japan of Green Gables says, today I will try and keep my questions and answers short and within a single message. I don't remember admonishing you for your question answering. Maybe I did accidentally, but please understand that you know that you are 100%. You can ask anything as long as it's, if it's toxic, whatever, I might disregard it. Bach Buddy says, good evening, Mitch, and hello all. Nice to see you. Margie Barr says, all good here. Nice to see you, Margie. And okay, good. So listen, this is kind of an epilogue. It's sort of like an afterwards. This chapter is very short. It's a message about leaving a cult. I think it would also apply to leaving an abusive relationship. The previous chapter, hurtling towards despair, that was really kind of the end of the book for me. And this, I tagged it on later. I purposely brought this book to a very abrupt ending because I wanted the story to continue. I wanted to continue and possibly add on to it later, or let my speaking out on YouTube stand as kind of the next phase of the book. But I might come back and write more. I'm not sure. Hey, yeah. So Japan at Green Gables says, no, you never admonished me. Good to know. I just know I'm too wordy and it can cause confusion when I spread it across 2 posts. Yeah, but don't even worry about it. We're here to just sort of work through all this stuff. But I appreciate your effort to try to keep things more organized. So anyway, I'm going to switch to the book here. We're going to start reading because this is going to, sorry about that. And yeah, this is going to be pretty short, and then we can get into conversation. So this is 26, Leaving Scientology, and it starts with a quote from Desmond Tutu. The simple truth is we all make mistakes and we all need forgiveness. There is no magic wand we can wave to go back in time and change what has happened or undo the harm that has been done. But we can do everything in our power to set right what has been made wrong, and we can endeavor to make sure the harm never happens again. Desmond Tutu. Those are, for me, were words to live by. I turn to Desmond Tutu for wisdom on forgiveness, and because I felt I was sort of so full of this, vitriol towards this group and myself, and so I really started looking into forgiveness, and I discovered from Desmond Tutu that we forgive our abusers, not for them but for ourselves, so we can unchain ourselves from them and have them no longer be in control of our destiny. I assumed that once I had made the final decision to leave Scientology, all that would be left would be to wait for the adrenaline to wear off, then move forward. In the early days of leaving, I had no idea how broken I was. I soon discovered that the decision to leave and then leaving was not enough to propel me forward into a brighter future. I soon discovered that thinking the decision was all it would take is really the same kind of magical thinking that was keeping me trapped. The narcissistic belief that I was perfect enough to pull up my stakes and walk off. I often hear people who've left Scientology and other cults refer to their recovery process as peeling an onion. I would agree if the onion were composed of layer upon layer of sedimentary rock that one had to excavate with explosives. What attracted me to Scientology to begin with? I was a 23-year-old film school dropout who was addicted to heroin, and the closest person to me in life had just died of an overdose while I was asleep in the next room. Subsequently, I was introduced to a group of people who seemed who seemed to genuinely want to help me free myself from the grip of addiction. They offered community, structure, and an opportunity to interrupt the cycle of drug use. Perhaps most importantly, they expressed an idealism, a desire to build a better world that aligned with my values. More than anything else, it was that sense of idealism that attracted me to Scientology and captivated my interest. What I got was a far cry from how it first appeared, something which became grotesquely different as the power struggles within the church raged, within the walled garden of Scientology's international management structure, raged on until finally a diminutive tyrant took the reins. I thought I had failed Scientology, failed to live up to its impossibly high standards of ethical conduct. Then one day it began to dawn on me that the shame I felt for having failed it had in fact been engineered by an organization that then turned around and offered to sell me a solution to the very shame it had instilled in me in the first place without my awareness or consent. For its ability to pull that off, Scientology may go down in history for being the most successful confidence game of our era, both in the way it gets people to willingly donate their money with no expectation of receiving anything tangible in return other than feeling connected, and for the way it creates need in its members, often by manipulating them into feeling guilt and shame and then convincing them those feelings are proof they need further help. It's difficult to imagine an organization that charges people to give up their core identity, but that's exactly what Scientology technology is designed to do. The fact is, the further one ascends up Scientology's bridge to total freedom, the more one's true identity, what is authentic about them, becomes replaced with a false mythology until finally, and unbeknown to the person, they are utterly lost in a belief system. They are something that in a belief system that they are something that in reality doesn't exist. Orson Welles famously said, if you want a happy ending, that depends, of course, on where you stop your story. More concisely, if you want a happy ending, you need the story to stop. You need to end the story before the shit gets bad again. I don't know where my story will end. No one does. But I am fairly certain that the blue sky I see before me is actually just that, and not a mirage seen through a distorted lens. Writing this book has been analogous to taking a 20-pound sledgehammer to what I refer to as my cult mind. I'm still picking out the little shards that lodge in the shadows. I suspect I will be doing so for some time to come. Okay, so that's the book. Thank you. I'd like to read the acknowledgements. I would just like to acknowledge some people who helped me to do this. Sincere thanks to my friend and former colleague, Mike Rinder, for his encouragement and for connecting me with talented and generous individuals who selflessly gave their time and talent to assist me in editing this book. Heather K. Gaynor, Rebecca Rumbo, and Amanda Johnson. A special thanks to my dear friend Carolyn Mustard, who originally approached me to work for Scientology. Without Caroline's support, this book would likely never have been realized in its final published form. And thank you to Jeff Hawkins for his friendship and support, and to the incredible artist known as Mermaid Cafe, who designed this book as a work of passion. To Iris Dement for granting me permission to excerpt a lyric from her epic song, Let the Mystery Be. And lastly, I'd like to thank someone whom I've never met, author Cheryl Strayed, who fearlessly inspired me to tell my story. I don't know why I'm so emotional about this. It's just freaking crazy. Anyway, there you go. If you've never read anything by Cheryl Strayed, I highly recommend it. She wrote the book Wild. It was turned into that, Oprah Book of the Month Club favorite, and that Reese Witherspoon made into a movie and almost won an Oscar for Best Picture. So yeah, and she did the thing called Dear Sugar for years. It was an advice column, and then it was adapted into a limited series on Hulu called Tiny Beautiful Things, which I highly recommend everybody watch, because it's just, I don't know. I'm a sucker for stories about redemption, about strong women, about overcoming, problems. Anyway, but that, yeah, I'm a big fan of Cheryl Strayed. So I've never met her. Somewhere I don't know where it is. I have my Cheryl Strayed mug that says "Write like a MFer." Okay, so that's that, and I think that's the whole deal. And then there's, of course, about the author at the end, but we're not going to read that because that's about me, and that's boring. So, okay, Paralyzed. Thank you very much. He said that's an awesome ending. I know. I remember talking to Mike about it because he, helped me with a final manuscript, and he said, I think it ends awfully abruptly. And I said, yeah, I needed to, because that's just what it feels like. It doesn't feel like there's some controlled landing. And he said, well, yeah, you'll have that's room, for you to do a sequel or to write more. And I said, well, yeah, but I think the sequel to this book will be my work on YouTube, which I'm still struggling with how to do it in such a way that I can, navigate through all the kind of social media minefield and just land being an activist who's trying to get a message out. Anyway, many of you thanked me. Yeah, I just appreciate this. I'm not even going to read these. I'm just reading them myself. They're wonderful. And I thank you so much. Yeah. So anyway, that's the deal. But I wanted to just go through a couple of things. I really appreciate it. I mean, these comments, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to put them up. I don't want people to think that I'm like, farming for acknowledgement, because I'm not. Duchess Diana said, very excellent book, and you were brave in so many ways to write it. Thank you very much. Duchess Diana said, Amber Sunshine said, thank you so much, Mitch. Bach Buddy said, thank you, Mitch. Japan of GreekG said, was writing a memoir different from writing for film as you thought it would be? Yeah, it was completely different. Yeah, I have to tell you, if you do read my book, and if you, I've said this 1,000 times, but if you really are financially strapped and you can't afford it, just send me an email at Scientology the Big Lie at gmail.com. I'll send you a Kindle copy, because it's more important that people read it than I make, whatever, $10 a copy or something. So I'm happy to do that. But was it different? It's extremely different. For one thing, the structure of prose is entirely different than the structure of a screenplay. I could do an entire season of streams on screenplay structure. Yeah, they're as different as writing a sonnet versus writing a haiku. So in the world of poetry, prose and screenplays are two entirely different things. But if you do read it, my point is, if you do read it, the first 3 chapters, which are leading up to me getting a Scientology, were all taken from portions of a screenplay I was writing about. That wasn't about me, but it was reflective of the kind of zeitgeist, the era in which I grew up in, that epoch in which I grew up in. Well, it wasn't really a whole epoch, but I think you know what I mean. Growing up in Laurel Canyon, growing up in the music scene, the 60s, the drugs, the Vietnam War, all that kind of stuff. And I had a kind of a very unique front seat to a lot of very important, interesting things. And so yeah, it was, I took that material, which I had sort of lifted from my own personal experience, and then I just turned it in my own personal experience. But yeah, it is really different. I mean, you can't just bang down what happened and how you feel about it. You have to really get to a point where you can give it context so that it becomes an authentic human story. Because the one thing I wanted to do was not just write a book from a former Scientologist, but I wanted to write a book that felt to any reader like it was an authentic human experience and they could relate to it. So you're not necessarily doing that when you're writing a screenplay. So, but yeah, it's different. But I felt very comfortable by the time I was done, and I'd actually like to write more books. So I hope that answers your question. Duchess Diana said, you have accomplished a great amount in writing and revealing your difficult and deep story. Yeah. And I want to say I have only scratched the surface. There's a lot more, but this is in terms of my difficult and deep story. But it's just, you can't, it gets too busy. It gets too crowded. Like you could fill a room with beautiful furniture or whatever. And there's a point at which, it's just too much. You need the space to navigate around and the ideas and so forth. But Bach Buddy said, I'd say pouring out your story and soul could make you emotional. You survived. That I did. What was I going to say? Yeah, it's, the other thing, and you may have heard me say this, but one of the motivations for doing it was everything about me autobiographically or biographically was in my PC folders that are quote unquote owned by the Church of Scientology, but they're really not. That's actually not a legal thing that they own the documents that they wrote down. It's actually your information. It's your privacy. And they actually don't have a legal right to keep it from you. And they may have lost that right, and I'm just not aware of it. But the thing is like one of the reasons I wrote it was I wanted to make sure that I was in control of what happened to me, that I could say it in my own voice, and that everything about my existence for the past many decades wasn't just contained in folders that are supposedly owned by the Church of Scientology. And even if that's just an abstract concept, because nobody's ever going to read those folders. And, the Scientology, nobody asked me this question. How come they leave you alone? I don't know. I think it's because they know, and I don't like to talk about this, but I think it's because they know that I have so much information that could be used in a lawsuit against them in terms of how I was treated, in terms of workplace bullying and elder abuse, because I am old enough to claim elder abuse. So most of them, I could kick their asses any day. But yeah, I appreciate that comment very much. Chuck Beatty said, thanks so much, Mitch. You're welcome, Chuck. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, Duchess Diana said, hey, you're not farming for acknowledgement. No, I really wasn't, but this is really overwhelming. I mean, I got to tell you this, I wanted to have this down. I'm not done with the audiobook yet. I got a couple chapters left to go. I can't believe that I read this before I finished that. It's challenging to do that on your own. I've been working on it for a year. And I still have a bunch of editing to do. Maybe I'm too much of a perfectionist. Maybe I'm just too afraid of the Amazon audiobook platform's very strict standards of quality. And I want to make sure that I hit it. Oh, man. Miss Amber Sunshine, we love you, Mitch. So glad you're out. You're out in the out. You're out in the out now. I like it. Out in the out. Duchess Diana says, you deserve the compliments and to feel good about reading them, period. Yeah, I'll probably read them all again after we get off. And Duchess Diana says, I sincerely hope that you have a lot more opportunities to develop and demonstrate your unique talents and insights professionally. Yeah, well, I'm working on it. It's challenging because I left Scientology and my career and all my friends. And, it's a person's outcome after leaving a cult or an abusive relationship, a high control cult or abusive relationship, heavily depends on what they're leading into. You don't really hear people talk about this, but I became aware of this when somebody wrote me on YouTube and they said, hey, I was in Scientology for 20 years. I was on staff for 4 years. I was here for a couple of years. I left. I was fine. Like everybody. And I thought about that. And I thought, well, what did I ask them? What was there when you left? What kind of support do you have? Well, I had family, I had work, I had money. And so if you kind of leave into a stable situation, it makes a huge difference than when you leave and you're leaving your entire career behind. It's, you do what I did, which is like jumping out of an airplane, with an armful of silk and a sewing kit and hoping you could stitch together a parachute before you hit the ground. And by the time I left, it was really fucking scary because I didn't know what I was leaving into. That makes it incredibly rough. If I had left into work, I was pretty estranged from my family, even though we were often in each other's presence, mostly my kids, because I don't spend any time with my former wife. But we were still very estranged. I could just feel all of the stuff from not just the interaction with Scientology, but the way it made me as a parent, the way it made me not see my kids and be transactional with them and, be conditional with them and to think I was really right. And, it's just like, I mean, a lot of that is been resolved, and it will be, but I don't think I'll ever have the kind of relationship that I could have had with my kids if I had been not in that kind of environment. Who knows what would have happened? It could have even been worse. Who knows where I would have ended up? But it doesn't instinctively, the more I learn who I am, um, it seems like it would have been a much more positive outcome. And Duchess Diana says, I enjoy listening to you, unlike my former wife. No, I'm just kidding. That's just, she's actually a wonderful person. Duchess Diana says, I can only imagine how difficult it must have been to keep a tight focus while writing a memoir. It was kind of like do or die. It was kind of like I was extremely focused. I mean, I wrote 432-page book in 7 months. And yeah, it's got some problems. I read it and I'm like, I need to move a few things around or whatever. And, maybe I'll fix it all up. I'm sure I will, and re-upload it. So there'll be like cleaner versions. The FYI, I've updated the ebook a lot. So it's actually the best edited at this point. But yeah, it wasn't difficult to stay focused. I literally went to my computer and I sat there like 8-10 hours a day, and I just wrote, and I set off drafts, and I got no spec from editors, and I went through all the notes. And I was really extremely focused, because for a year and a half prior to that, I was like of the mind of like, nah, I'm done. And I literally sat on my sofa. I've told this story for a year and a half, and I played video games, mostly Overwatch, which I became quite good at. Not good enough to be pro. And then one day I just dragged myself off the sofa and I said, I have to do something creative. And it was also, I did a lot of work that I was happy with when I worked for Scientology. Not happy because of what it did for Scientology, but because I thought it was good quality creative work. And it was important for me to do something that was against them, that they had no control over, that would be the best piece of writing I ever did. And some of the stuff in this book is absolutely, I'm really satisfied with it. It wouldn't even matter if people didn't like it, because I'm only judging it against my own scale of where I was, where I am, where I'm going. So, but then when people like it, that's just like, that's just like a cherry. It's a big pile of whipped cream in a cherry. Japan of Green Gables says, it does answer my question, yes, and also I'm really sorry about Mike. I'm feeling the loss, so I can't even imagine how much heavier it is for you. No need to put this up a response if it's too heavy. No, that's totally fine. Anything we can do to acknowledge Mike, I think he really, somebody could do a case study on how toxic social media can be, just oriented around Mike. But I'm not here to do that. But yeah, it was my biggest regret is when I came out, I hadn't seen Mike since, he left, before he left, and we spoke on the phone a lot. He helped me with a bunch of stuff. And I didn't have the resources, either physically, emotionally, or financially, to just jump on a plane and fly down there. But I really wish I had. I regret not having a chance to see him and meet his family before he passed away. Yeah, Duchess Diana says, yes, such a good way to take back control of your life. Great point. It really is, because, I quoted earlier in the book that thing Miss Gabbage had said at the opening of SMP, we're going to, if you don't write your own story, somebody else will, and we're going to write our story like no religion on earth. And that is a quote that he stole from somewhere. He didn't source the credit of it, but it's really true. It's like, if you really want to control your narrative, then you need to tell it yourself. You cannot let other people want to tell your story. You may want to at least tell it alongside. Yeah, Chuck Beatty says, for sure you have them. They don't have you. And now, yeah. And Bach Buddy says, Apple Box Boy is worried about what you'd say, considering your years of working with him. I don't know. I was kept from, I wrote an entire book, and there was like maybe 2 things in it that are legally actionable. One was that I witnessed. One was a case of an incident involving felony verbal SA to a minor, a 14-year-old girl who was made to, ask obscene questions and screamed out with obscenities and so on. You can't do that to minors. It's actually felony SA, verbal SA. So I think he's more worried about what I would say about what happened to me. Which he wasn't really like in the room or directly involved in, but he was definitely involved in it. Oh yeah. Duchess Diana said, crazy analogy, the sewing a parachute. Yeah, I didn't know. I struggled with how to I didn't, that's not something from the book, but I was talking with somebody one day and they said, wow, how did you leave or something? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, what was it like leaving? I said, well, it was like jumping out of an airplane with an armful of silk and a sewing kit and hoping you could sew a parachute, because I had no idea what was going to happen. I left into nothing. No work. I'd saved enough money that I could live for a couple of years, and and then that was it. And so now it's just a struggle. But we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. Duchess Diana says, "You're writing some amazing therapy." Yeah, it was very therapeutic. And Mark, let me see. I have trouble reading this. Mark Lecoq, Overwatch. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I really like that game. I used to play a lot of video games with my kids when they were younger. We were kind of big Halo fanatics. We started with Halo when it was only on the Mac, and then we, graduated to Xbox. And so, yeah, I've always played a lot. I use video games to help my younger kid read, because I couldn't get him off the console to read. And so, I finally got my kids reading comics, and which is a great way to get kids, especially boys, to read. They know more about the Marvel Universe. My older son knows more about the Marvel Universe. It's just like scary. Like if two of the motion picture studios who are like always battling over the licensing and who can make what movie. I mean, most of the Marvel movies we see are because those are the only deals that the different studios can make with one another, because there's multiple, when they started combining them all, there's multiple contractual and ownership blockades to making some of these Marvel movies. But you could literally call him in as an expert witness, because he knows so much about not just the Marvel Universe, but the entire universe of making Marvel movies. But my other kid, we used to get walkthroughs, what's called a walkthrough. You download them from IGN, the game network, and they'd have this PDF walkthrough. So they walk you through the entire game, tell you where all the Easter eggs were and where they help you. And so my kid would get frustrated. He's 9 years old. He's playing Halo. And so then I would read him the walkthrough. I go, no, turn left. No, look here. Okay, look behind that rock. There's a thing there. There's a weapon there. And then at a certain point, he said, hey, let me see that. And he grabbed it out of my hand and he started reading it. And so my kids probably don't even remember that, but that's how I tricked them into reading more. And so Japan of Green Gables said, that's funny, because I wanted to ask you what your thoughts were about video games. As a filmmaker, I've been playing Balado a lot lately, which is not very cinematic. Yeah, I have really strong feelings about video games. I'll try to post it if I can remember. Okay, so a lot of you have heard about Twitch. You know all about Twitch. It's a streaming platform. It started out as a streaming platform for gamers. As far as I'm concerned, gamers were the ones who invented streaming. It was invented so people could live stream their games and comment on games. Twitch was the platform that grew up around that. And you have these amazing streamers, people like, I used to follow them. I don't have time, like XQC. If you guys have never watched XQC, he used to be with the LA, not the Gladiators. LA has two Overwatch teams. There's a pro league, which you can, buy an Overwatch team. I think there's somewhere between $20 and $60 million, depending. So it's big money. Shaq O'Neal owns part of the LA team. So it's a big deal. But anyway, so XQC was a high-ranking pro player who was with the LA. I can't think. I know there's some Overwatch fans out there. We have the Gladiators, and we have another one. And they've been that team, the LA team, has been really good about that program there was like an inclusivity program, anti-bullying program called Let Everyone Play or something like that. And they were very supportive of the LGBTQIA community because gaming has been toxic. But so anyway, my point is, my first foray into streaming, I was going to start a channel on Twitch called WOG, W-O-G, which stands for World's Oldest Gamer. I never did it, but I learned a lot from watching these guys. So then Twitch blew up, and Amazon bought it for $900 million. They bought it for nearly $1 billion. The people that started Twitch had no idea how they blew up like that. So they commissioned the #1 marketing research firm in America to figure it out. And the result was amazing. They wanted to know who these gamers are that would make this platform so powerful that Amazon would consider it as an advertising platform worth almost $1 billion. Turns out the gaming community, of which 40% are women, and probably more now, they're higher, the myth was that, they're a bunch of slackers living in their grandmother's or mother's basement, but in fact they're their cohorts, their demographics, they're comparable demographics. They're more educated, higher income earners, and they're more willing to engage in social causes, give money, do that kind of stuff. So it's a fascinating picture. And then I came across the information that there are clinical trials going on to help people with traumatic brain injuries recover by playing first-person shooters. And they're designing first-person shooter video games to help people because it's a clinically proven fact that these games will improve your brain elasticity. But there is a sweet spot. It's like if you play more than something like 4 hours a day or something, or less than 2, there's no benefit. And if you play more, it's not good for you. So you kind of find the sweet spot. And they find in school kids who are like hardcore gamers who fit into that sweet spot, they academically do better. So I'm very, and I once, Scientology couldn't figure out where to put Dianetics ads. And so I wrote a proposal. I said, put them on Twitch. Oh my God. That was right at the very beginning of my troubles with them. I got eviscerated for suggesting that. Mitch, Brisker thinks we should advertise on a game channel. Like he just cares about playing games. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So they really missed out on that because that at that point, if they would have started putting Dianetics ads on Twitch, which thank God they didn't, they might have actually made some inroads because, the whole, one of the big law, Dianetics originally got its start supposedly, and I think this is partially just their own urban legend, because stunt pilots would read it because they heard it would improve their reaction times. But whatever, I love video games, period. Okay, let's move on. So that's my about video games. And Overwatch is very cinematic. The other thing I like about it is you're not killing people. I never like playing Call of Duty because you're actually killing people, and some of those people are yelling out in Spanish or Eastern European accents, and I'm like, oh, this feels creepy. But Overwatch, it's almost like anime. I mean, it's just like it's not real. Yeah, I like Halo because it's aliens and the blood's purple. I just didn't like killing people, even in a video game. So I always liked it. A fantasy, and Overwatch is an amazing game. I know it's gotten a lot of criticisms, but I think as a first-person shooter, it may go down in history as just being amazing. So that's that. I should say, go down in history as being amazing. Go down in history as having made a significant contribution to the culture and the functionality of first-person shooters. Okay, here we go. This is from Mark Lecoq. Laroque. I think it's Laroque. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Scientology is interesting to me how these training routines and similar things are used to totally control the bandwidth of its adherents, I'm assuming. Hubbard was a devil, interested in interesting things, but evil. Yeah, that's completely true. And it really took me a long time when I left. Like, one of the things that I had to do was I had to start breaking these things down. Like, what does this really do? What is really happening when you're under the control of an auditor and you're doing these quote unquote objective processes? Objective meaning they're not about how you think internally, they're about how you see things externally. And the auditor says, walk over to that wall, touch that wall, and you're being fed this lie that is supposedly bringing your attention in the present time, but it's just teaching you to be compliant. Like, that auditor is a proxy for Hubbard and the organization. And when you execute that auditing command, you're just learning to be compliant. So they are really fascinating. This says, Japan and Greek Gables, have you been able to touch base with Jason Begay since you left? No, I haven't. I think Jason has kind of very smartly left this all behind. He did his bit. I think personally, he went to Texas. He dug up Marty Rathbun. He got Marty going back when, Marty was actually doing some good work against Scientology. Jason's a huge TV star. I've not really tried to reach out to him. He knows that I'm out here and I'm doing what I'm doing, but I also think that he's such an incredibly potential target for OSA that he just doesn't want to, I can't speak for him, but if I was him living his life the way he's doing it and having achieved what he did, calling out Scientology the way he did, I'd feel perfectly comfortable at just going, living my life as the most important, probably one of the highest paid actors on NBC network. But I wish him well. He's a great guy. And yeah. This Duchess Diana says, I haven't been around for all your videos, but have been waiting for the audiobook, and I am glad to be here tonight. I'm sure I'm not alone in my comments and compliments. Thank you very much for that. I cannot believe, excuse me, how long it's taken me to do this audiobook. And now I'm living at a place which I have a good setup. I have my setup back. As you can see, the blanket for it is very acoustically, it's very productive. But I am located in a place where there's a lot of noise, and I really can only record like from midnight to 3 a.m, which is very frustrating, but I'll get it done. Duchess Diana asks, I wonder if you're feeling lighter tonight, some relief perhaps. Actually, no, I'm going to be really honest with you. And I'm kind of like, I'm kind of miss it already reading this. And I have some other content lined up that I think is important. I don't consider myself an entertainer. I don't think I'm interesting enough to be an entertainer. I've always been behind the camera. It's kind of like there's a gravitational pull towards being entertaining on YouTube. YouTube is, what is it comprised of? Let me see, entertainment, education, and entertainment, news, and instruction. Those are the 3 components that make it up. And, I want to be known as if I was going to be pigeonholed, it was like I would be an activist. I would be not an entertainer. I hope that I can say things I can deliver messages that are in an entertaining way, but I don't consider myself an entertainer. So I'm a little like, I now have, when I decided to finish reading the book on YouTube, I was like, okay, I know I'm going to do every day. I'm going to go on either at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock, depending on my schedule. I'm going to read the book, and now I'm done. So I don't know, what do I do? Go back and read it again? But Duchess Diana, you haven't been around for all my videos, but they're all there. And if you want to watch them, it would be great, because I would like to focus a bit on trying to get this to grow, because I think in the midst of the current situation with the community being so fractured, it's an important time to just keep the drumbeat going and say what you know. And I got to tell you, there's an overwhelming desire to call people out for their bullshit. It's just not worth it. It's one of the things that fractured this community. But, there's a certain amount of, you got to say it. YouTube incentivizes a kind of immorality. And I mean an immorality of truth, not of physicality or, other types of immoral activity, but just the immorality of being willing to see the truth as a fluid thing and let it take you where the engagement is the greatest. So, every time I talk about Tom Cruise, I get a spike. So I'm going to talk a lot of stuff about Tom Cruise, which is fine if you want to do that. But it's just like, it kind of starts to cross the line at a certain point where it's like, what is the purpose of like doing this? And I've done stuff about Tom, but it's only because it's things that I experienced and I directly with him and my viewpoints on that, because I did hang out with him a bit. Okay, Bach Buddy says, I also use PC games and comics to help me with my boys and making better readers. Harry Potter was a godsend to me. Absolutely. Harry Potter was, geez, my older son, who was incredibly literate. I'm trying to think, like he read every Harry Potter book, and he was like a tween or younger. He was just a ferocious reader, and I remember he would do things like the movie would come out, we'd go, we'd stand in line, we get our tickets, and he wanted to be up to date on the previous book. So he would read the previous book, trying to finish it just before we'd go see the film. And on the day of the film, he wasn't done. He took the book to the theater and he just sat in his seat and read the book. And I kid you not, he got to the last page, he closed the book, and the film started. So yeah, they're voracious readers, and I'm happy that you shared that, because this was like, parents, listen. I mean, not everything in my family was influenced horribly by Scientology, but it was overall an extremely negative and toxic influence. It says Mark Laro says, I've never seen many people your age actually have an advanced knowledge of modern video games. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of a unicorn that way. When I was working for the church, we had a very noted internet guru dude who was doing SEI or SEO and reputation management, all that kind of stuff. And so I was on this team with him and his people from his office, some of whom, went to MIT with the Google founders. And these were really hardcore people in terms of the mechanics of the internet. And he used to say, Mitch, you take to the internet like a 10-year-old kid, meaning, you really get it. So yeah, and I tell you, that's the other thing, because I am older. I am now an elderly person. It's important to me to do things like play video games and stay current on technology, because you just, I've seen people my age, they just lose it. I mean, I lived near a really nice colony, like a elder home, a really nice place, and down the street from me. And I'm older than a lot of the people there. And it's just like, I can't even talk with them. I see them on walks. I say hi, and but yeah, thanks for that. It's funny too, because how many times have I had my ass handed to me by a 12-year-old girl playing Overwatch? Many times, because I'm never going to be as good as these kids. They're just so sharp. But people ask me, "Hey, how old are you?" And I don't tell them. My pat answer is I'm 106. Move on. So let me see what's next. But yeah, you won't find a lot of people. There are some, but Andrew B says, I would wager you had many gamers in the 4chan protest movement. Oh yeah, that was one of the major things 4chan existed for, was to share gaming stuff. So yeah, there were a lot, and there was a lot of really smart people. I'm telling you, if you stay in the sweet spot for how much you play, it'll keep your brain sharper. It helps your eyesight. This is clinically proven because you're doing this hand-eye coordination, and you're having to think really fast, and it has a positive effect on your cognitive ability. And Miss Amber Sunshine says, looking forward to you reading your book on Audible. I have your hard copy book and several mugs when your book comes out on Audible, going to donate to a local cult class. Wow, that's great. Thank you very much. And somebody asked me the other day, and I forgot to answer, if you want an autographed copy, you can get them at mitchbrisker.com. So yeah, I appreciate that. And it will be done, and it'll be on Audible and every other platform where they sell audiobook. But as I said, the Amazon owns a platform called ACX, which is the audiobook platform for Audible, for Apple, for Google, for all audiobooks. That's the platform. And they have very rigorous standards. So I'm like trying to, tweak everything to just really stay on that spot, because you could record an entire book and they could reject it. And then there's a year's worth of work goes up in smoke. Japan of Green Gables says, someday you must explain to me why you have Japan in your name, one of my 3 favorite countries in the entire world. I remember hearing once that professional esport gamers have to spend a fair amount of time in the gym and eat healthy, because those have major impacts on your reaction times and stuff. Yeah, there was some controversy. There was so the first Overwatch season, which was, I don't remember when that was. I think they're in their 4th or 5th year now, but the first season they took over, what's his name? Jimmy Fallon had just taken the Tonight Show not long before that to New York. And so all of NBC Studios in Burbank was pretty much empty. So OverWatch came in and they took over the entire studio. I was driving down through Burbank and I stopped at a light, and the entire one of the LA teams, the entire team walked in front of my car, and I was looking at them thinking, these kids are so young. They were all like about 20. And I was like, oh my God. And they were so cute. And they were like, you know, there were Korean kids and like American kids and foreigners and blah, 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 you know, kids from Europe sort of who made up that team. But my point is there was the Dragons from Taiwan. They came in last. They lost 32 out of 32 games. Their logo became a meme for loser in the Overwatch world. And it turned out that the reason they were so bad is because they were being worked too hard. It was a huge controversy. These kids, you know, they put them all up in a house, and then they were all like literally practicing 12 hours a day. These kids had no life, and as a result, they were bad gamers. So they had to shake the whole thing up, and they had to bring in new management and a new coach. So yeah, it's really important that you do that stuff. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I started sucking at playing one day, and then I would just, you know, rather than throw my controller at the TV, I would just, you know, turn it off, go take a long walk, come back, and you're okay again. So there really is a sweet spot. Japan of Green Gables says, I played a really interesting game called Faith. I don't know it. The Unholy Trinity that was made by one person, and he did some really impressive things. It looks like an old Atari game, but really cinematic. Yeah, I think you're talking about the games made by one person. Those are referred to as independent games. There's a lot of them. I know I'm a Xbox gamer, so I know on Xbox there's a lot of independent games, and they're great. They're just the vision of one person. And I don't know how they pull it off, but okay. So Mark LaRoque says, do Scientologists think that the Markab Confederacy is a real thing, like a distant UFO empire? What is a Markabian? And do Scientologists think they were real, for real? The answer to your everything you said in there is yes. Yes, 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 yes. Absolutely, 100%. They believe that they're real. I don't know where they fit in with the Zunu story. I never quite can figure it out if the Markabs, if that was a civilization that Xenu, you know, everybody kind of envisions him as this sort of alien overlord. But that civilization, they were just like humans. They were like us. And he was actually supposedly a tax collector, like he was in charge of taxes. And Hubbard said that the Markabs invented income tax as a punishment. So I always kind of figured, yeah, I guess that was the Markabs. But yeah, they totally believe it. I mean, they think they're here. They walk among us. There's a bunch of people on Earth that are Markabs, and they're, you know, maybe it's the psychiatrist. I don't know. But yeah, they really do believe that. I got to tell you, I never did. And there's a lot of people in Scientology that compartmentalize, you know, they're just like, I'll put that over there. I hope I answered your question. Hello, Liz, Gail. How are you? It's so nice to see you. Liz says, I think the Tom Cruise content is like a store doorbuster. It, in theory, gets people in the door on the channel. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Liz. It's, I mean, I think we call it clickbait. That's not 100% fair, because clickbait is like the thing that you bait with is not the thing that you give them. And most of the Tom Cruise content does give you something. But yeah, so if, you know, I think Tom appeared in my book once because it was a story about we all had dinner together at St. Hill, and the conversation covered some things that were really worth talking about. Other than that, I don't do Tom Cruise, that whatever, because I just, you know, the guy's whatever. He's you know, he's hopelessly locked in this relationship with the leader of a cult who fashions himself more like every day, more like Tom. Tom fashioned himself more like Miscavige. And so you have these two kind of narcissistic people who mirror one another. And I see Tom really as a victim more than an abuser, but that doesn't mean he can't be held accountable. I mean, he does. He if he ever comes out of Scientology, he needs to explain to the world why certain things happened. And I can tell you, to Tom's credit, he really does understand that it's his fans that are responsible for his wealth and his power, and he does a lot to acknowledge his fans. And I think he does that without Miscavige's permission, because Dave is not that kind of, he's fine on doing that kind of thing if it's self-serving. Okay, so Peter Anderson, any chance you can get Sterling to come on your channel? Yeah, possibly. Yeah, Sterling called me this morning. We talk all the time. Yeah, maybe he will. I mean, he started a new channel. Sterling he's more addicted to baseball than I ever was to drugs, but in a really good way. Like he coaches Little League, and he's like, I'm telling you, if he wouldn't have been born in Scientology, he would have been a pro baseball player, because he's a very talented athlete and just a really nice guy. But he started a baseball channel, and it's really cool. I watched a couple episodes. I'll put a link to it. Sterling is a fantastic individual. He's really escaped Scientology and made a very nice life for himself. But at the same time, he's very willing to talk about Scientology and his family. But I'll ask him. I'll tell him that there were overwhelming requests. Duchess Diana says, YouTube is bringing out into view the telephone gossip game that has always been. I think people forget that we are only human and thus capable of making plenty of mistakes. That's true. But there's also a lot of incentivizing going on YouTube, which is like, makes it profitable for individuals to, to make certain kinds of content that might not be the most productive in terms of the mission of exposing Scientology. It might be, it's just, the YouTube algorithm pushes people to be selfish and self-serving. It's like really amazing. Liz Gale said, to hopefully expose the new viewer to deeper Scientology info. Let me see, that was, okay, here, let me just read these together. I think Tom Cruise content is like a store doorbuster. It, in theory, gets people in the door of the channel to hopefully expose the new viewer to deeper Scientology info. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's then, you're kind of using Tom for the same way Miscavige does, to attract attention. So that's a good thing, because you're like using it against them, which is fine. But it's just sometimes it gets a little too much. But I'm not calling anybody out. Everybody's free to do whatever content they want. Bach Buddy says, have to leave. Visitors stopped in. Please remember to hit the like button. Thanks again, Mitch. Hey, Bach Buddy, you're welcome. Have fun with your guests. Japan of Green Gables wants to know, did you prefer as Dumbledore Richard Harris or Michael Gambon? Oh, Richard Harris. Absolutely. Richard Harris is like, that other guy was just filling in. Who's but I tell you what I really liked about Harry Potter was, what's his name? I mean, one of you guys will know, because my memory is just sucking right now. The British actor who read the book, because we used to take long drives on family vacations, and we would play the audiobooks in addition to the kids reading them. I mean, we read those books to the kids when they were little, and then as they got older, they started reading them themselves. What is his name? Somebody will tell me. But anyway, they are the best written, spoken audiobooks I've ever heard. I mean, they're just fantastic. And they're not, they're British. The ones we had were the British, I guess, British edition, because they had all the words like jumper, or that, the British words that they changed in the American books. Okay. Mark Lecoq says, how is it that Hubbard talked about Christianity being an implant, but he also said that his mission was fulfilling biblical prophecy about the Antichrist? Oh, yeah. I mean, there's like, Scientology is a bottomless pit of hypocrisy. There's no way to actually explain these things, where on the one hand, if Jesus is an implant, that means the Bible is what? It's just a fiction. But then at the same time, he claims to have been the Antichrist, but maybe he was having a bad day. He was just really wanting to be like Aleister Crowley, which he never pulled that off. And he said Jesus was a pedophile. Mark LaRoque pointed that out. Well, that doesn't surprise me, but I never read that quote. But he said so many outrageous things. Duchess Diana says, I think just keep going with YouTube. It takes a while for creators to catch significant momentum. Yeah, I'm not particularly impatient, Duchess Diana, so I will do that. Thank you. Duchess Diana says, yes, I loved you in Sterling. I always used to catch those. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We were doing that movie trivia thing. A couple of times we got Rachel Hastings to come on, and that was a lot of fun. That was back in the days before everything got fractured, when some people, led the way and say, we can have fun here too. So I'm like, that looks like a great idea, because, when we get together and we just talk as friends, we have a lot of fun, and it would be nice to share that stuff. But I appreciate that. Japan of Green Gables, if there were to be a movie adaptation of your story, who would you want to direct, or would you rather pass it off to another director? And if so, why? Well, I think I would want to make it, but I would be more than willing to sit back and let somebody else do it. But, as long as Brad Pitt played me. No, I am just kidding. Anybody but Timothée Chalamet. I'm just kidding. Don't come after me for saying that. I'm just being snarky on purpose. Yeah, I don't expect it to happen, but yeah, I would want to make it or produce it. I know my younger son, who's successful in the Hollywood film business as a post-production person and now visual effects. When he read the book, he said that he insisted that I give him the movie rights to the first 3 chapters, because he wants to make a movie about that, meaning the stuff I went through before Scientology, which is kind of interesting. So this Lupita T says, listening to you read your book was incredibly impactful. I could feel the emotion and contrition in every word. Well, I appreciate that. It was genuine. Japan of Greek Cables is answering my question. That's easy. I'm from near Prince Edward Island, where Anne of Green Gables is set. Partially, it's because Japan and Anne rhyme. So instead of Anne of Green Gables, okay. But also, Anne is huge in Japan, and tons of Japanese tourists go to PEI. That's amazing. What a great backstory. It's so obscure. Like, nobody's ever going to guess that, but I get it. It's totally cool. As further, she says, in the summers, it's also a reference to that. So it's just an Anne of Green Gables pun that I thought was clever when I needed an online username. It is clever. I really like it. And Japan of Green Gables said, hold on, one more. We got one more here. And then my profile picture is the singer from the band Japanese Breakfast. Oh my God, you people are just an endless pit of cleverness. Peter Anderson says, at Liz Gale, why has no one brought a TC cardboard cutout and brought it to a protest? The one I found was 6 foot, so they were generous, giving him 6 more inches. Yeah, he's about 5'7", I think. But then, I'm sure he had lifts on, because I never stood next to him barefooted. But yeah, okay, good. Then why? Okay, good. Thanks for clarifying that. Lupidia T says, I've learned people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Maya Angelou. Wow, that's a great quote. Wow, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to look up and see what context she said that in, but that is a beautiful quote. Mark LaRoque said, it seems like the policy of keeping Scientology working includes some of the most dangerous ideas of Scientology. What do you think now? Hammering out of existence bad tech, better dead than incapable. Oh, yeah. And I think all of us, and I think former Scientologist Liz Gale would completely back me up on that keeping Scientology working, it's just frightening. Like, when you read it, it used to sort of Like, is this what I'm involved in? Just and you sort of you sort of dilute the concept in your mind of we'd rather have you dead than incapable. We take it as a hyperbolic adjective that's not to be taken literally, but they mean it. He meant it literally. We would literally rather have you dead than incapable. And just so you know, David Miscavige's primary job as the chairman of the board of the Religious Technology Center is to make sure that all the 10 points of keeping Scientology, I think it's 10, keeping Scientology working are in place. That's his job. And when they say hammer out of existence, boy, they are not kidding. Sabine said, I'm a big fan of war history. Is propaganda history something you would be interested in talking about? Russia has some propaganda videos out right now. Oh yeah, definitely. I would definitely watch those. Yeah, I have that chapter in my book, what is it? God, I can't remember. It's all disappeared. Anyway, it covers Leni Riefenstahl, the Nazi propagandist, and her collaboration with Hubbard. The seduction of opportunity is what it's called. Yeah, propaganda has always fascinated me, and I'm particularly fascinated by Soviet propaganda from that era. Because there were some tremendous artists working in the Soviet Union, and up until they took over and during that time. So yeah, like Red Chinese art is really fascinating. This kind of art that pushes this ideology, which Scientology is really big on. It developed a bunch of it, like, auditors walking towards camera with beams of light behind them, walking in slow motion, carrying meter cases. I invented all those images, which became the standard way in which these people were shown. And they're, as I wrote in the book, it's not much different than these glorious posters, these glorious paintings in the Soviet Union or Red China of, these workers, these strong, powerful workers, marching for this, wonderful purpose. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of propaganda. It's like literally the parallels between Soviet propaganda and Scientology propaganda are mind-blowingly similar. Stephen Fry. Okay. And that's in relation to, I missed something here. Okay. Well, maybe you come and let me know what that is, because I'm not. Okay. Wise Mama says, any crazy but truthful outing of Scientology, Tom Cruise or not, is a good thing. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good thing. And I'm glad you put the word truthful in there, because I think, we're going to win this battle on the truth, not on making up a bunch of crazy hyperbolic stuff. Okay. My name was Duchess Diana is sharing the origin story of her name. My name was a fast pick back several years ago. Started as Duchess of Chug, but I like my name, so I changed it. Yeah, no, I like Duchess Diana. I think it has it has the alliteration, the double D's, and it's like, and don't read anything into that weird, please. Thank you. Adam Carmona says KSW is ideological meth. Yeah, it might even be worse than that, but it kind of is. In the same way that meth will rot your teeth. Duchess Diana said, also, I used to jokingly often say my name was Princess Diana, but stopped doing that after she passed. The Duchess was a good second choice. Yeah, I can understand why you did that. Mark LaRoque says, looking back, what did you think about the fact that you, belonging to this group that called itself a church and had ministers and a cross, and they have celebrations of Christmas? Thoughts? That's how would I answer that? Well, come on, everybody celebrates Christmas. I grew up, my background is Jewish, and we never really practiced Judaism, but we were all raised to be extremely respectful and glad about our history and our heritage. And unlike Scientology, the Jews don't proselytize. You got to fight your way to become a Jew. Literally, it's like they make you jump through a lot of hoops to become a Jew. But I'm trying to think. The cross I always thought was phony, because I always thought the Christian cross was phony because it predated Christianity and was from a pagan, was actually supposedly from, what's his name, the guy, the Roman soldier who became Christian, and the cross was supposedly his sword. I'm sure some of you know more about that than me, but I always thought that the cross was a fake religious artifact for Scientology. I always thought their celebrating Christmas was obviously, like a lot of people, was just a commercial cash grab. And the calling itself a church was like, when I first got in, and the ideology in the world was very different, it was like, maybe a church can be a new and different thing. But that's not what it turned out to be. It turned out to be, maybe we could call ourselves a church so that we can get tax exemption and fool people into thinking we're a religion and da 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 da. So I didn't give it much thought. I mean, I struggle a lot with the fact that I had to accept that I had to live with a lot of things that I disagreed with so that I could have the benefits of being in Scientology, especially when it became my career. It all became very complicated. Mark LaRoque says, yeah, but did you think it was at least fake to say you were a church? That's a Christian word, church. No, I actually didn't, because remember, I was like committed to this, so I didn't think that. Here's what I thought. Religion, and I still think this, the idea of religion is it's your desire. It includes your curiosity to discover your true identity, your relationship to the universe, your relationship to other people. And so somehow you get into this kind of weird, twisted thinking where you're like, yeah, Scientology is doing that. That's one of the cons that Hubbard pulled off. He's like, we're here to help you discover who you are, what your relationship is with yourself, what your relationship is with other people or beings, as they might have said, and the universe. And so you think about, you're like, oh, that's what religion is. Okay, so maybe we're the only ones that know what a church is. You get that deeply, you get that lost in the thing. So I'm not going to sit here and just tell you that I was like, oh yeah, I knew what was going on. So, and again, Mark Lurick says the early Christians were Jews who hated paganism. I am a Catholic Christian, by the way. Okay, cool. I'm not like an anti-religious person. I consider myself an atheist. And I'm also, for some reason, I have in spite of the Catholic Church's history, which has been pretty bloody and had all kinds of things going on, maybe it's because of the friends that I had growing up who were Catholic, but I have this kind of respect for Catholicism. For one thing, I do believe it teaches people that they should be more Christ-like. And in spite of possibly many ways in which that has been violated, the Catholic Church does provide, and this has blew my mind, 25% of all the healthcare that is delivered on the entire planet is delivered by Catholic organizations. So at least they're putting their money where their mouth is. So, but yeah, and I had a dear friend who died young in his 30s, who was a Roman Catholic Italian, and just, I adored him and his family. And, I remember going to his midnight mass, and it was very stirring, and it was just an incredible experience. So, but yeah, we all of us Jews know that the early Christians were Jews because, there was only one religion on earth that believed in one God, and those were the Jews. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. Decreative Daughter says, hey, Mitch in chat, just hopping in late. That's perfectly fine. You're welcome anytime. Do go back and watch it, though, because I think it's a really short chapter. Okay, that brings us to the end of that. I've got a couple of things. I just wanted to do a little house cleaning. I just feel kind of obligated to do this. Let me find it. Where would this be? This would be slides and PDFs, your computer. Oh, man. What the hell? Let me find the Scientology letters. Okay, good. I told you guys the other day. Let me share this. I told you guys. Oh no, shoot. Sorry, that's my book. Oh, here it is. Add to stage. Okay. I told you guys the other day I had this letter from Miscavige that I quoted in the book, and I just want you to make sure that I wanted you to know. Oh God, I have to. How can I scroll this frickin' thing? Okay, here. Okay, I need to be able to scroll this so you can actually see it. Okay, here it is. Oh, I can do it like that. Okay, so I've redacted a bunch of it. The cover up is not a cover up. This is just personal information. There's nothing in there that I'm like hiding that like law enforcement should know about or anything like that. But this is, I don't know if you can read it, but I just wanted you to see that this was the letter that I quoted in the book so that you knew that I wasn't bullshitting you about having this letter. You can see right here at the bottom of this page is the part that I quoted, and the whole part of me quoting it was just to show that like this person is just like, it's an endless river of love bombing and maintaining fake friendships with people for his own benefit. So, and then the other thing I kind of wanted to revisit is, let me see, how do I make this full screen layout? Okay, fine. No, I don't like that. Doesn't work. I'm trying to pull this up. Oh, I think I know what the deal is. Exit full screen, because I don't think we can actually read this. But this is okay. So then I received this letter from Golden Era Productions, and I kind of want to, let me just find the goddamn thing, the actual thing, because I'm going to read something to you that I think is, I'm doing this just for my own edification. I really appreciate you guys all being, yeah, let's, whoa, I've got all these papers and everything's falling apart here. Okay, so where is this? Oh, here it is. Here it is. So here's the letter. You can see it right here. Well, there it is. On David Miscavige's personal stationery. And this is the one where I excerpted this. Truth be told, I do not know what happened. I was informed that HCO S&P returned you to gold. I asked what had occurred, and they bluntly didn't want to tell me. I asked them why, and they told me that quite in addition to our working relationship all these years, they knew we were close friends. They felt it better not to tell me since they did not want me to, I assume, think badly of you. So I left it at that. 100% bullshit. He absolutely knew everything that happened. He knew what his specially trained people had just done to completely brutalize me. And you know, but he just wanted to hold himself harmless. So he's like, hey, great to hear from you. I didn't know what happened. It was a bunch of crap. So then there was this other, I wanted to show you. There was this other, okay, before we travel back in time, do you remember a couple of chapters ago, I talked about this character, Jenny Linson, who's a bootlicking bulldog from Miscavige. And it was in the CCHR chapter. And at the end of the whole deal, when the museum was released, and we'd had this run-in where I told her if she kept saying I was going to shove her head into a wall, which was not a real thing, but I just was expressing how I felt. I never would have harmed her. And then she made this T-shirt that said "it" on it and gave it to me in a gift bag, like, hey, let's be friends. Isn't this funny? I found the artwork. This is it. Let me see. I'll bring it up. That's it. That was what was on. Here it is. That's what was on the T-shirt. That's supposed to be vomit and the word "it." I thought you might. I thought you might enjoy seeing that. So there was this sort of infamous letter that Golden Era Productions wrote me after I started speaking out. This was a letter. There was a bunch of controversy about me being paid a lot of money. And some even content creators thought, oh, this is a good way we can attack Mitch Brisker. We'll just say they paid, you know, I shared this with somebody and then they used it for the same purpose that OSA was, which was to try to make me look bad. And the whole thing's just an allegation. But I'm just going to revisit this newly because it's been like a year or a year and a half. And it never really, you know, I sort of did this on somebody else's channel and turned out not to be a good idea because that person did not have my best interest in mind, even though I was sharing with them all kinds of content and was willing to give them anything I had because their platform was so big that I could be assured it would get out to a lot of people. And that's what I cared about. Uh, this was from August 28th, 2023, right out. And I think I started speaking out in July. And this is from, let me just pull this up here. This is from, oh, maybe I could make this bigger. I'm a little lame at doing this, so sorry. This is from, okay, what does it say? August 28th, 2023. I started in July. So this will give you some idea. It took him about a month to respond. And if you notice at the bottom, can you see? I don't think you could see the bottom of this page because I think it's obscured, but it's actually the Golden Era Productions address in Gilman Hot Springs, California. Not so this is not a legal threat from them. The fact that they wrote this letter from their local stationery out in Gilman Hot Springs means that they didn't want it to go through the OSA office, which is the office in what they call the H. Hubbard Guarantee Building on Hollywood Boulevard. They didn't. That's normally where a letter like this would come from, but they put it on their own stationery because they were trying to clamp this shit down. Like they didn't want. They were still like, oh God, we don't want Miscavige to know about all this stuff. So they sent me the most lamest threatening letter, and I'm not going to read it all to you because there's some, again, I've redacted a bunch of it for privacy reasons. And also just legally, it's stuff that I'm not going to talk about right now. And that's not because I'm covering up anybody's crimes. It's not that at all. And this is from Kathy Frazier, who used to be married to Jeff Hawkins when he was in the Sea Org. Kathy's what's called a port captain, and that is like a legal liaison who sort of works with the local community and helps out in legal matters. Not a legally trained person. This is Dear Mitch, and notice it's the style. You have violated is like bold. I don't know what that's all about. You have violated both your contract and the multiple NDA agreements you signed with us. Okay, right there. That's bullshit. I never signed an agreement that said, I will not talk about what a-holes you people are. The only agreement I ever signed said, I won't talk about your plans or what we're working on. I'm working on nothing with them, and I don't know what their plans are. So I violated nothing, but they thought maybe I would yield to a threat. And I knew it wasn't legal because it was sent to me by FedEx. So they just wanted a signature to know that I got it, but you can't be served. Something that shows up on FedEx is not legal. It said, you agreed to pay liquidated damages to Gold of $25,000 per violation of your contract and NDAs. I have calculated at least 30 violations to date. That's $750,000. Nice round number, no? Now, do you notice it says, I have calculated almost? That's not legal. If it was legal, it would be following as a list of it would be very specific, not to mention it would come with a process server. And then here's the allegation. Golden Era Productions paid you more than $8.4 million for your professional services. And then that was weaponized against me on YouTube by actual content creators who were supposedly anti-Scientology, who just decided, I guess, that they wanted to blunt my voice. And so they were like, you just were doing it for the money, plus you weren't born in Scientology. So how could you really know what it's like? I raised kids in Scientology. Believe me, I will never know what it's like, but I have a pretty good understanding. Oh, and then it says, and plus consider that this is an allegation. It could have been more for all I know. And it was over a period of 30 years. Doesn't count the few years I worked for Scientology Media Productions. And by the time you take, 40% of away of taxes and state taxes and, a mortgage, a divorce, 2 kids in private school, a wife who wasn't working because you're always gone, it's not a lot of money. If it's so much money, why have I been like struggling to not be unhoused for the last 2 years? And it's not just because I'm not good with money. Okay. And then it's, okay. So that's the allegation, which got weaponized against me, even in this community. Hopefully we're done with all that kind of stuff. It says here, this is a really big lie. Your services were terminated in 2017 due to blah, 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 blah. Okay, good. So let me see what part of this. Okay, was there anything else I didn't? Okay, yeah, this is fun here. This says, I love this. This is like, check out the threatening language. This is like so Scientology. Stop fooling yourself. You are following the dictates of someone, your psychologist, who is manipulating you into a reality that is false and which you know is false. And then it says, I love this. What? Let me, okay. It says, you are now a man who turned on and spread lies about the people who not only have the ability to help others, even those like you who consider themselves beyond salvage. Did I say that? Like they're telling me that I consider myself beyond salvage, but who helped you the most. We will endure. This is the part I love. This is like they're channeling Hubbard for this last paragraph. We will endure your lies. I'm going to read this kind of dramatically. We will endure your lies. You won't. The overt act is too great for your own spirit. Nothing will ever replace what you have now lost. Your honor, your real friends. Mitch, I suggest you carefully reflect on your conduct and stop violating your agreements. Kathy Frazier. Okay, so I wrote a response. I never sent it. I went on Aaron's channel and then I shared it with him because I thought that would be a good idea for getting it out really broadly. And then he brought on his lawyer friend, Zach. We went over the letter. His lawyer friend, Zach, said, it sounds like a threat from an ex-girlfriend. And the only response would be taking a picture of yourself doing this and sending it to them. So I never sent a response. But you know what I want to do? It's kind of always bugged me that I never responded. And I think it's long, I don't think there's any legal liability in me. Sorry, I went off mic. Let me find this. I just want to read the response. I never sent it. Where the hell is it? And it looks now like I lost it. Hold on. Sorry. 1 second. Okay. Here it is. I found it. Sorry about that. It's actually, I need to read it. It's right here. Okay, so I'm going to read it to you. Here it is, world premiere. I got to give my dog a snack first because he's like looking at me like, what are you doing? We're not playing. We're not walking. I'm not eating. There you go. Okay, here we go. Dear Kathy, I am in receipt of your letter. Please forward the NDAs so that I can review them and give you a proper response. If you are merely threatening me, shame on you. Keep in mind, I can subpoena the NDAs, but why go there? So I'm just calling her bluff because these NDAs don't exist. As for the money you allegedly paid me, the amount you quote is far less than I would have earned had I sought other work beyond the Church of Scientology. The work I did for Scientology was granted at a significant discount. More importantly, that number is far out of proportion to the hundreds of millions of dollars my work brought into the church. If there were ever a perfect example of out exchange, it is the disparity between what the church paid me in relation to how it profited from my efforts, not just in monetary value, but in reputational currency. I took gold from being being infamous for making some of the poorest quality films in history, and through my blood, sweat, tears, leadership, and dedication to the mission, I transformed it into a world-class production facility, producing high-quality products. Not to mention, I took it upon myself to ensure Gold had a competent director after I left, and no one asked me to do that. You can't put a price on any of that, so don't insult me or yourself by trying. Have you all forgotten that when I arrived at Gold, the entire shoot operation had been shut down and the crew banished to the galley, forbidden to touch their tools? As for terminating my employment in 2017, I was working for Gold up until lockdown in 2020 and even remotely into 2021, and I have the pay stubs to prove it. And then I stopped. That's where I stopped writing it. I never finished it because I was like, yeah, fuck it, why? But I wanted to share that with you all so that at least now OSA has a record of what my official public response was to do a video on YouTube called Mitch Brisker to Golden Era Productions, F off. Okay, so that's that. But I was happy to have you here to bear witness to my answer. Hey, we have a few more comments before we wrap this up. Let me okay. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just finding my place here. Mark LaRoque, respect. Mitch, wishing you nothing but goodness. You too, Mark, to my Catholic friend. Absolutely, you too. Hey, I wonder, did you see Conclave? You can't really answer that, but it's a really interesting film. I was just fascinated by the inner workings of and it brings up a interesting, a very interesting issue that it deals with. And I tend to, I quoted Pope Francis in my book because he was very generously bringing in the LGBTQIA plus community. He's a Jesuit. He's the first Jesuit pope. I'm kind of like Jesuits have done a lot of great things throughout history. And so there you go. Welcome to the Catholic Hour. Good night in advance to everyone as well. Good night, Duchess Diana. Thanks for coming by. The Anthony R. Mill Show is back. Thank you very much for stopping by, Anthony. Appreciate your participation. I come from a Catholic background, but do not spend much time in church these days. Certainly, many bad things have been caused by Catholics over 2,000 years, war, essay, etc. But as you state, they do provide a lot of charity and healthcare throughout the world, regardless of recipients' beliefs. Yeah, and I've always just simply said, well, the Bible says to be like Christ, take care of the sick and the poor, and they do that. And they do a lot of other stuff, but they do that. And who does Scientology take care of? Nobody themselves. Okay, Japan of Green Gables said, I have never heard anyone say a positive thing about Jenny Linson. Yeah, that's a fact, but if Jenny left and was spoke out and said, yeah, it was really stupid what I did, and I'm sorry that I hurt people would embrace her so quickly. I would be one of the first ones. Well, she didn't, because I was friends with her mom and I knew her when she was a kid, and I saw all the bullshit she pulled on people, but she was always made herself be cool with me, because it could have been a real problem if she went after me for a while. Towards the end, no. But yeah, but even Jenny would be embraced. You just need to come out and say, yeah, I did this, and stop causing the damage, and then do what you can to make sure it never happens again. That's all that's expected of anybody. Kristen Frost Laser Beams says, bunch of well-adjusted, not insane at all, Phaeton humans. I'm not sure who you're referring to, a bunch of, but thank you. Kristen Frost, Laser Beams. It's like watching the third rock from the sun, but with people thinking they are aliens. Yeah, it's true. I think the alien thing is like nobody in Scientology thinks they or Body Thetans or Xenu were aliens. They think that's our story from an earlier time. They think that's a human story, not an alien story. They don't, it's kind of like Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles. I don't know if any of you have read that, but there's a scene, there's a little girl, there's a colony of humans living on Mars. They've been living on Mars for a long time because there was a disaster on Earth, and they had to vacate Earth and move to Mars. And then one day the little girl asks her father, Daddy, are there Martians? And he says, go down to there's a lake, like they've created some kind of artificial environment. He says, go down to the lake and look in the lake and you'll see a Martian. And she goes down there, looks in the lake, she sees her own reflection. So that's really on the inside how Scientologists think of it. Liz, am I wrong? Are you still here? We don't think of all this as aliens. It's just earlier iterations of some form of human beings. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Kristen Frost Laserbeam says, churches don't charge for past services you sat through, LOL. Yeah, no kidding. And she says, again, you responded thoroughly enough by telling them you will not comply. Yeah, that is correct. Japan of Green Gables, my dad really wants me to see Conclave. It's a really good movie. I mean, it's going to be up for Best Picture. It's not my pick. But and if you're wondering, my pick is The Brutalist. So now you know. And by the way, I made that announcement. I'm doing some streams with Mark Fisher. We're doing some movie reviews. Mark asked me to do that for his Las Vegas channel, and I just, asking me to talk about film is like asking a kitten to play with a ball of yarn. I go, okay, let's go. Whoa. Kristen Frost Laserbeam says, I've been watching North Korean pirated TV. Reminds me a lot of the superficial crap in Scientology films. Hey, where can I get a link to see some of this stuff? Hit me up. I would love to see North Korean propaganda. Liz says, I'm here. I think you're right. I'm reminded of the spaceship chariot racing, space opera, etc. Yeah, it's exactly. It's like that was us, you know. It's kind of like I think it's the reason why Hubbard went absolutely apoplectic when Star Wars came out. Think about Star Wars, you know, in a galaxy far away, you know, a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away. It's like they were humans. They weren't aliens. They were just living all over the galaxy. So it's kind of more like that, but it's somehow I don't know how the space alien thing started, but there's like, it's not, I've never encountered anyone in Scientology that relates any of that to aliens. Japan Green Gables asked if I saw the new Nosferatu. No, it's on the list. I have the screeners, so I get to see a ton of movies, and that's definitely on the list. I'm very interested to see it. I hear it's absolutely fantastic. Okay, good. So that brings us to the end. This has been really fantastic. Wait a minute. Sabine said that. Oh yeah. So Sabine says, "Hey, I want to see North Korean TV too. Hit me up. Maybe you could provide me with some links and I could show some of it and we could talk about it. I could relate it to the Scientology propaganda that I was involved with." Yeah, and Liz says, but also Elleridge talks about a lot of other alien species in his sci-fi. So I feel like that opens the door for alien existence lore. Yeah, it does. Absolutely. I wasn't thinking of that, but yeah, you're right, Liz. He does. But, you know, those books are everywhere. I mean, they're all over the place conceptually. But yeah, you're right. Like even in, what is it? In Battlefield Earth, you know, the the worst movie ever made. He's a John Travolta character with some kind of alien. So yeah, he did have aliens, but I always kind of got that, you know, that the civilization that Hubbard claimed begat Xenu and the DC-3s and all that stuff was looked like our civilization. And he further said the reason that our civilization looks the way it does is because we have this distant hidden memory of that, which is a real devious lie. But anyway, thanks, Liz. Japan of Green Gables says, a long time ago in a galaxy far away, they elected a fellow by the name of Zeno to be supreme ruler. Yeah. Yeah. Look up Peter Fairley for North Korea TV. Okay, yeah, I will Google that. Thank you so much. Okay, it's on YouTube. Okay, I'm going to check that out because maybe we could just do that. Okay, guys. So, oh wow, we've been at this for an hour and a half. Shortest chapter in the book, and we've managed to stretch it out to an hour and a half. Okay, I'm going to be back tomorrow for sure with a very important story. I hope you all tune in. And in the meantime, thank you so much for helping me read the book and for bearing witness to my actually getting it down. I didn't think I would have so many comments along the way, my own comments, you know, annotating the book, but I did, and it was amazing, truly amazing. Hey, Japan of Green Gables, I remember seeing a video once that was a North Korea propaganda film about King John Il was a fashion icon. Well, he is, right? I think he is. I think he invented that sort of buzz cut on the side. Yeah, same to you, Lupita. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, I'm going to bail, take my dog for a walk. So I'm signing up now from, believe it or not, rainy Los Angeles. You guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hey, guys, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps with the algorithm so that videos like this can reach a broader audience. And be sure to hit that notification bell so that you'll be informed when new videos drop. For additional ways to support this channel, please click on the link tree on the Scientology the Big Lie channel page. This work is only made possible with your support. Thank you.